Hello my friends and welcome to this new practical tutorial, the last one of part 1, data preprocessing. And so in this tutorial we're going to create our final training set and test set, and to do so we're going to use a function that will take exactly as input those two elements we created here, meaning our independent variables in this array x and our dependent variable in this vector y. So let's do this. Let's add a new code cell. And now, finally, my friends, you're about to be introduced to one of the most popular machine learning library, which is scikit-learn. Scikit-learn contains a lot of great modules and functions and classes to build your machine learning models, and it even contains modules that allow us to do some data preprocessing, like we're about to do right now. And indeed, the function we're about to use right now to create our training and test set is taken from scikit-learn. So we're going to start by typing from scikit-learn, which has a name sklearn, to access this function we want to use, right? Because sklearn is the whole library, but then in a library you have some what we call modules. And now we're going to access the module which contains that function. And the name of this module is model_selection, right? This is a very popular module as well, which contains a lot of great tools. And the tool we want to use right now is the train test split function, and therefore to get it we simply need to add here import and then the name of this function, which is train_test_split. So you see the structure. We make a call from the scikit-learn library, and from this library we get into the model selection module, and from this model selection module we import the train test split function. All right, and now that we imported the function, well, we can use it. And so first you need to know that this function returns 4 elements. First is going to be the inputs of the training set, meaning the independent variables of the training set, and which we're going to put in a variable called x_train. That's usually, the common name we choose for this. Then the second variable returned by this train test split function is the inputs of the test set. And so we're going to call this x_test. Then the next output returned by this function is this time the output of the training set, which we're going to call yTrain. And finally, you guessed it, the last element returned by this function is the output of the test set, meaning the dependent variable in the test set. And we're going to put that in a variable called yTest. Okay? And so then the next step is to, of course, call the train test split function. So I'm adding it here, _test, and there we go, split. And then we're going to add some parentheses. And now you already know what we need to enter here as parameters of this train test split function. Actually, we can see that here, these are the compulsory parameters to enter. And what they mean by arrays here is, of course, the 2 arrays we created before, meaning, the array of inputs and the array of output. All right, so that's exactly what we need to enter first here. So inside our train test split function, let's enter the first parameter, which is our input x. Then second element is our output y. And then you have optional parameters, but that we're going to choose to enter because they will allow us to choose the proportion you want to put in the test set. And actually, that's what you see here. The next parameter that we're about to enter is test size. And this is the percentage of data, of observations you want to put in the test set. And a good recommendation, a good practice is to put 20% of your observations in the test set and therefore 80% in the training set, so that we have enough observations in the training set for the model to train on it and a small proportion in the test set to evaluate the model performance. Okay, so let's add this next parameter, test size, and as we said, we want to choose 20%, therefore 0.2. All right, that means that among all the observations of our data set, well, 80% will go into the training set and 20% into the test set. Remember that there are about 10,000 observations in this data set, 10,000 data points, and therefore about 8,000 will go into the training set and 2,000 will go into the test set. Okay? Then I just want to add one last element, which is completely optional, but good for the purpose of this machine learning training, machine learning course, and that is random underscore state. All right, and we're just going to set it equal to 0, and that's in order for us to all have the same training set and test set, because you know that this train test split function will do a random distribution of your data set into the training set and a test set according to a 80-20% split. But in order for us to all have the same training set and test set, we put this seed, which is our random state parameter, equal to the same value, which is better indeed for training purposes. Okay? All right, so now we have our training set and test set split into xtrain, xtest, ytrain, and ytest. So let's run this cell. Successful, congratulations. Then code, adding a new code cell. And we're just going to, display all of them. So I'm going to add a new one here. We're going to display xtrain, then xtest, then ytrain, and finally ytest. And we're going to run them all just to have a quick look at them, because indeed it's good to visualize a bit what we are coding. Okay, that's ytrain and ytest. All right, so let's just quickly recap. In xtrain, we have the input of the training set. In xtest, we have the input of the test set. Then in ytrain, we have the output of the training set. And in ytest, we have the output of the test set. All right? And then we have around 8,000 observations in xtrain and ytrain, and about 2,000 observations in xtest and ytest. All right, so now we're getting to the exciting part. We're about to start part 2 to build and train our model, because indeed we have everything we need from the data preprocessing to start building and training our model. I look forward to doing this with you in the next tutorials, and until then, enjoy machine learning.